Hello and welcome to Game of the Year for 2023. We have our categories, we have our nominees, we have our winners. So, we're going to run down the categories here, and the awards are Most Surprising, Best Name, Best Action, Best World, Best Boss, Best Mech Game, Best Story, Best New Character, Best Cast, Best Soundtrack, and Game of the Year. You may notice that we dropped Best Debut and Best Mobile and Best Strategy, but that's okay because, I didn't finish Triangle Strategy, so it couldn't win Best Strategy because that wouldn't be fair because I didn't finish it. But just a quick aside here, too, as we're getting started, there are some games that won't be on this list because I didn't finish them. If you'd like to see the top 10 games I didn't finish, we already made a video on that. You can find that hopefully here at the end of the video. And also, I didn't play every game that came out this year, as you might expect. I didn't touch Stray. I didn't touch God of War. So you're not going to see those on this list. Please keep that in mind. If you want to type in the comments section down below of, hey, you would have put this game here if you'd played it, that's fine. But just keep in mind, I didn't, so I can't change the past now. Also, I have been playing Guild Wars 2, and some people might say, hey, where is End of Dragons on here? I didn't get to End of Dragons. Again, see that video for games that we missed to be able to get that. These categories, I'm very excited for them. And of course, as always, let me know in the comment section down below which ones I got wrong, which ones you would have chosen for each category, what your winners were, and whether or not you enjoyed the picks that I made. But let's get started with Most Surprising. Most Surprising or Biggest Surprise, of course, being the award that goes to the game that out of all the games this year surprised me the most. And the winner for Most Surprising is Vampire Survivors. This is a game that took me completely by storm. I did not expect it to take a hold of my life the way that it did. There's a lot of games that I play for first impressions, right? A lot of games that I play that I may never touch again. Vampire Survivors is one that I played for first impressions, and I walked away from it after uploading the video, and I was like, man, that was cool. I liked that game. I'm going to come back and play it. And then I did. And then I put it down and went to go record another game. And as soon as I was on that, I played another run of Vampire Survivors. And that would just happen. I'd be working on something, and I'd finish it, and I'd play a run of Vampire Survivors. It's getting late, getting ready to go to bed, play a run of Vampire Survivors. Tell me, wind down a little bit, which didn't work. I always wound up playing another round or another round after that. This was a huge surprise for me because this game kind of came out of nowhere, and I saw a lot of people talking about it, but then the talk died down, and I was like, okay, well, it must not have been that great. Turns out I was wrong. Because it was really good, and it absolutely was the biggest surprise that I had for Vampire Survivors for 2023 is what I was trying to say. Vampire Survivors, biggest surprise, most surprising, Vampire Survivors. Just a quick shout out here in most surprising as well to Tunic, which was the runner-up. Tunic blew me away, and were it not for how much I played Vampire Survivors, would have won this award for sure. Best Name, being the game that I think, out of all the options that we had this year, had the single best name of any game that was mentioned. And I believe that Best Name goes to Frogun. I absolutely adore that name. What a cool name. It tells you everything you need to know. There's a frog, he's a gun. Frogun. It's also really fun to say. The game itself is really fun. It's really cool. I like it a lot. I love the style. The music's really great. But the name has such staying power. Frogun. The award for Best Action, being the game that I thought had the best action combat system out of all of them in the action game genre, which is a huge genre with a bunch of subgenres. And there were a couple different games this could have gone to. There were some games that had some really cool combat systems this year. But ultimately, I feel like Best Action goes to Final Fantasy Origin Strangers of Paradise. What a cool job system. What a cool action combat system. You have a block. You have a soul block that lets you absorb enemy attacks if you time it right, or allows you to get a quick block in when you need it, but also reduces your stamina meter. You have your basic attacks. You have all the different attacks that you can set to your D-pad. You have the different ways the jobs synergize together. You have the ways that the affinity works together. Most jobs have multiple weapons, and the movesets are different per weapon, so you have all of these different options to be able to play around with and make a build that is unique to you in a way that I found really, really fun throughout the course of the game. I absolutely love the combat system in Stranger Paradise, and it's why the DLC disappointed me so much by having that huge difficulty spike, because I really love just running around in that game and having a good time, and the whole core game was a great experience to me because of how good that combat system is. So best action has to go to Final Fantasy Origin Stranger Paradise. I want to give a special shout out here in Best Action as well to Darktide, Warhammer 40k Darktide. I did not finish Darktide this year. I didn't even get a character to full level, so I don't want to just throw it on here. But I absolutely think that if I'd gotten some more time with that, Best Action is something that it easily could have achieved, because I really enjoy the combat system in that game as well. Next up is Best World, the game this year in 2022 that had the best world to explore, the best world to spend time in. And there were a couple really strong contenders this year. Games like, and I don't want to just give away that it's not going to be this game, but games like Xenoblade Chronicles 3 that had a really cool, interesting world to explore. Games like Sonic Frontiers that had a really fun open world to run around in, or even Pokemon Violet that had a really interesting world, for the most part, cities maybe less so, to explore. But the ultimate winner for Best World has to be Elden Ring. Everywhere I went in Elden Ring, I found cool new things. And you may say, but Trey, there's some of the same enemies just recycled in all the different areas. But it's different formations of them. They're in different situations. So it really felt like an interconnected world where everywhere I went and all these cool new things I got to see were just another part of this world that's almost seemed to be ever expanding. There are limits to it. It just takes a while to find them. But I found each of the locales really, really interesting. And I think the way they all tie in together is absolutely great. The Lands Between was an absolute joy to explore. And I wish that I could explore it for the first time again, because every time I stumbled upon something new in this world, I was just blown away. Such a cool world to explore. I want to give a quick shout out here as well when we're talking about worlds to Tunic, which I think also had a really cool ruined world to explore where you had to slowly piece everything together. And I really, really like that world. I just think I like Elden Ring's world a little bit more. Next up is Best Boss, and this one will have spoilers. So if you don't want to see the spoilers for a boss fight from Sonic Frontiers, yes, you heard that right, skip to the next timestamp in the description or in the comment section down below. But Best Boss is Knight from Sonic Frontier. I know a lot of people are going to say Wyvern, a lot of people are going to say Giganto, but Knight for me was the most fun that I had in that game. I loved all the boss fights in that game. Find Your Flame is an incredible song, and the fact that it plays while you are reflecting the shield back towards the knight, and then you get to use the sword. It's so good. It's phenomenal. Absolutely boss fight of the year for me was fighting Knight in Sonic Frontiers. I adore that fight. Next up, Best Mech Game. Now, this is, of course, the award going to the best mech game that came out in 2022. We have this category because mech games, there's a lot of them that come out that are bad, but there are some that come out that are really, really good, and I want to make sure they get their due and don't get lost in the rest of GOTYs. So the best mech game for this year was SD Gundam Battle Alliance. SD Gundam Battle Alliance has a few problems that I think may hold it back for some people, such as the low currency, but they have done a lot of things recently to raise the amount of currency that you get every mission that you go on, which really does help to be able to get all the units that you want to get. Gameplay-wise, this game's great. Story-wise, game's really good. And the way that it all ties in together with characters jumping around between everything, characters making references to G Gundam that are not from the G Gundam world because they've shown up in a G Gundam level, it's so good. There's so many good references for fans of the Gundam franchise. SD Gundam Battle Alliance is a must-play, I would say, for a diehard Gundam fan, because this is where you're going to get some really, really cool character interactions that you otherwise wouldn't have gotten. Absolutely love playing it. Really glad that I did. Still haven't touched all that DLC yet, and I'm excited to be able to go back and do that. But wonderful mech game with a little bit of customization. Not as much customization as I would have liked, but you know, hey, we got Front Mission coming next year. So people are going to be like, why do you say Front Mission when Armored Core's coming? Because obviously Armored Core's going to win the award next year, and I don't want to take that from everybody. It looks so good. Anyway, next award, Best Story. Again, there were a couple different games that really could have taken this one. It was really tough for me to like pinpoint just which one I wanted to give it to, but ultimately I had to give it to Xenoblade Chronicles. The story in Xenoblade Chronicles 3, which I refuse to spoil here, if you want to hear some spoiler talks, go back and watch the review, is absolutely incredible. I almost spoiled stuff. The arc of figuring out where the story's going and then realizing what it's building up to and then realizing how it all comes together at the end was absolutely incredible, and I learned to love those characters so much. Absolutely incredible story. Xenoblade Chronicles 3. Best New Character. This is, of course, an award that goes for, hey, what was my favorite character that came out this year in video games? And again, there were a couple different options, and I have a winner and a runner-up on this one. The runner-up is Arven from Pokemon Scarlet and Violet. I adore Arven. Such a cool character. And a lot of people say, you just like him because he loves his dog. You know what? Yeah, that helps. I really do like Arven, and the story of, I almost spoiled stuff, the story of his family and everything going on there that you get by the end of the game is really, really solid, and I found Arven to be possibly the most affecting character in Pokemon in a very, very long time. It's been a while since a character in Pokemon has hit me as hard as Arven did. But the winner for Best New Character is N from Xenoblade Chronicles 3, which might surprise you, because you might say, well, Trey, why didn't you pick one of the main party members, or why didn't you pick any other character? There's so many good ones to pick from. I find N to be a wonderfully tragic character that I don't know that I can blame for the choices that he made, but I absolutely find him to be a wonderful villain. And I don't want to spoil too much here. Again, but N's story is one of my big favorites. Not just for this year, but of all video games. It's such a good story. So, N has to take this one home. Best Cast. Now, this is, of course, the best cast of characters for the year. This won't surprise you. It's Xenoblade Chronicles 3. Absolutely adore that cast. Tyon, Uni, Lance, Senna, Mio, Noah, Banana. I almost called her Banana, and Riku. I adore that cast, and that's not even getting into the characters, the heroes, that is. That's not even getting into the other side characters that get introduced. Absolutely adore that cast. Xenoblade Chronicles 3 absolutely deserves to sweep story, new character, and cast as far as I'm concerned. Next up is Best Soundtrack. What was the best soundtrack for the year in video games? And this one's a tough one, because you have like licensed songs, and then you have the soundtrack itself, right? But there are two games that I think stand neck and neck this year when it comes to soundtracks. Not just the vocal themes, but also the level themes, the world themes, the fight themes. It's all of them are great. And those two that I believe need to tie, and it's the first time I think we've ever done a tie on this channel for Game of the Year, but they're going to tie and both get half the award. Sonic Frontiers and Xenoblade Chronicles 3. And I'm going to make my case here. Xenoblade Chronicles 3, I believe, deserves to win because it has an incredible soundtrack, all made using two flutes that the team at Monolith Soft made, custom made, to be able to make their soundtrack sound unique. And it does. You hear those flutes in almost every theme in that game, and they just elevate it up. And I will forever, I believe, be able to hear that da-na-na-na-na-na-na-na from the flutes. It's so good. And that's not even counting how good the boss fight themes are. That final boss theme, which is incredible. The remixes of Xenoblade 1 and Xenoblade 2 songs that are used here, that Drifting Souls remix legitimately makes me want to cry every time I hear it. Xenoblade Chronicles 3 absolutely deserves to win. But so does Sonic Frontiers. And I want to give a quick runner-up shout-out to Darktide on here. I didn't finish Darktide, but Darktide's soundtrack is really, really good. Sonic Frontiers' soundtrack is also incredible. The vocal themes are out of this world, and I want to talk about them in a minute. But even the cyber level themes, the world theme as you're running around, the little music stings when you find the secrets, they're so good. I really, really love those cyber themes, and I ground those out trying to get S on all of them. And the only reason I was able to do that is because of how good those cyber themes are. But at the end of the day, it comes down to the vocal themes. And the vocal themes in Xenoblade are really good, right? I love A Step Away. I love Where We Belong. The vocal themes in Sonic Frontiers are now my most listened songs for the entire year. And I finished Sonic Frontiers in November. I love those. Will the whole world know your name? You want to get me hyped up? You want to get me hyped up, game? You play Find Your Flame, and I'm gonna get hyped up. I'm there. Let's go. Now, here we go. It's the end of the show. Hear them. They're calling your name. I'm here. Let's go. I love the vocal themes in this game. And that's why, to me, overall soundtrack, Xenoblade Chronicles 3 has the best soundtrack of the year. But vocal themes? Sonic Frontiers. Hands down. Hands down. Undefeatable's great. Find Your Flame. I'm Here. Da, 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 da. So good. Absolutely love that soundtrack. And that's why it has to tie. It has to tie. I could have broken it up into best use of vocal themes, best use of orchestral themes. I just wanted them to tie here because I think best soundtrack sounds better. Best OST, right? Finally, Game of the Year. This is the big one. Game of the Year. There's a lot of things that could have won. A lot of things that some people would say should have won. But at the end of the day, my pick for Game of the Year, the full spectrum's Game of the Year for 2022 is Xenoblade Chronicles 3. I've made my case for how good the story is. I've made my case for how good the soundtrack is. I've made a case for how good the characters are. And I've even mentioned how good the combat is. At the end of the day, all of these things together, the world, the combat, the music, the characters, the story, it all ties in together to make what I believe to be a defining JRPG, to be one of the best RPGs that exists right now. And I know some people are going to say it's way too early to be saying that. I don't care. I absolutely adore this game. It's very long, and there'll be a lot of people that won't play it because it's very long. You really should play Xenoblade Chronicles 1, 2, and maybe a little bit of X, maybe even Saga and Gears if you want all of the context for what's happening, and that'll turn some people off. But at the end of the day, Xenoblade Chronicles 3 is an incredible game. The themes that it tackles are 100% worth digging into in my mind. And a lot of my own personal philosophy is tied into themes that this game tackles. And so this is 100% a personal thing as well, right? How can I talk about the best story without it being personal? How can I talk about best new character without it being personal? Best soundtrack is the soundtrack that I enjoyed the most, right? Because this is my opinionated list. This is my opinion. But at the end of the day, I think that Xenoblade Chronicles 3 absolutely deserves Game of the Year. There are a lot of great games that could have won it. There really, truly were. Elden Ring is fantastic, and I adore it. Games like Vampire Survivors that ate up so many hours of my life. Sonic Frontiers that just was a joy the entire time to play through. Things like Pokemon Violet, as much as some people didn't like it, I loved my time with that game. Tunic came out this year, and absolutely, it was so adorable. But at the end of the day, Xenoblade Chronicles 2, or 3, is my Game of the Year. Let me know in the comment section down below which ones you would have put where. What would you have given the awards to? And what awards would you like to see us do next year that we didn't do this year? Until next time, I've been Trey. This has been The Full Spectrum. And remember to always enjoy the full spectrum. The Game of the Year has to offer. It's that time again. Give me your time again. It's that time again. Give me your time again. It's that time again. I messed it up at the end.